Hare Krishna, my dear devotees. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in the Haven, which is located in Hythe, Kent, Southeast England, just a stone's throw from the English Channel. And we're here on the holiest of days, Vyasa Puja, the day of the birth of our dearest Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder, Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, who did what no other person could do, spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. He did even more than Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya could do, or did. They could do everything. But they left it for him to do, and he did it. So we are eternally indebted. We can't describe it. We can't express it. But we can give our lives to him and try our best to distribute the sound vibration that he left. When he was asked what would happen when he died, he said, I will never die. I will live forever in my books. But to read Prabhupada's books, there has to be an ability to hear. And that ability to hear comes from submissiveness, from surrender, which is a very rare commodity in this age of Kali, especially at this time that we're living in now. So we pray to Srila Prabhupada that we can hear. What does it mean by hearing? Srila Prabhupada said, hearing means doing. If you're actually hearing, then you will do what the books say in terms of how we see the world, how we treat others, and how we serve the Lord with unmotivated and full devotion. It may be a work in progress, but at least Srila Prabhupada gave us the goal that we can work towards. So on this day, there's no better way, I think, than to worship him, than to read his books out loud into the ether and then archive it for future, for posterity. Okay. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Mihima Stotram by Srila Sanatana Goswami glorified the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, which was Srila Prabhupada's magnum opus, and explains what the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Purāṇa Śrīmad-Bhāgavata Prabho Kali Dvandoditaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Shri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Manvahadana Manistadaga Madbhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhuta dayin atini chochata kada hanamun chagadachin mam premna rit kanta yogspura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we've reached the 32nd chapter of the third canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the entanglement in fruitive activities, as Lord Kapila Dev continues to tell it like it is, the cold, hard truth. We're beginning with text 30. This perfect knowledge can be achieved by a person who is already engaged in devotional service with faith, steadiness, and full detachment, and who is always absorbed in thought of the Supreme. He is aloof from material association. Purport. The atheistic, mystic practitioner of yoga cannot understand this perfect knowledge. Only persons who engage in the practical activities of devotional service in full Krishna consciousness can become absorbed in full samadhi. It is possible for them to see and understand the actual fact of the entire cosmic manifestation and its cause. It is clearly stated here that this is not possible to understand for one who has not developed devotional service in full faith. The words samahitatma and samadhi are synonymous. Text 31. My dear respected mother, I have already described the path of understanding the absolute truth by which one can come to understand the real truth of matter and spirit and their relationship. Text 32. Philosophical research culminates in understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After achieving this understanding, when one becomes free from the material modes of nature, he attains the stage of devotional service, either by devotional service directly or by philosophical research. One has to find the same destination, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. It is said in Bhagavad Gita that after many, many lives of philosophical research, the wise man ultimately comes to the point of knowing that Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is everything, and therefore he surrenders unto him. Such serious students in philosophical research are rare, because they are very great souls. If by philosophical research one cannot come to the point of understanding the Supreme Person, then his task is not finished. His search in knowledge is still to be continued until he comes to the point of understanding the Supreme Lord in devotional service. The opportunity for direct touch with the personality of Godhead is given in Bhagavad Gita, where it is also said that those who take to other processes, namely the processes of philosophical speculation and mystic yoga practice, have much trouble. After many, many years of much trouble, a yogi or wise philosopher may come to him, but his path is very troublesome, whereas the path of devotional service is easy for everyone. One can achieve the result of wise philosophical speculation simply by discharging devotional service. And unless one reaches the point of understanding the personality of Godhead by his mental speculation, all his research work is said to be simply a labor of love. The ultimate destination of the wise philosopher is to merge in the impersonal Brahman. But that Brahman is the effulgence of the Supreme Person. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 14:27, Brahmano hi pratishtaham amritasya vyayasya cha. I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is indestructible and is the supreme bliss. The Lord is the supreme reservoir of all pleasure, including Brahman pleasure. Therefore, one who has unflinching faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead is said to be already realized in impersonal Brahman and Paramatma. Text 33. A single object is appreciated differently by different senses due to its having different qualities. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is one, but according to different scriptural injunctions, he appears to be different. Purport. It appears that by following the path of Jnana Yoga, or empiric philosophical speculation, one reaches the impersonal Brahman, whereas by executing devotional service in Krishna consciousness, one enriches his faith in and devotion to the personality of Godhead. But it is stated here that both Bhakti Yoga and Jnana Yoga are meant for reaching the same destination, the personality of Godhead. By the process of Jnana Yoga, the same personality of Godhead appears to be impersonal. As the same object appears to be different when perceived by different senses, the same Supreme Lord appears to be impersonal by mental speculation. A hill appears cloudy from a distance, and one who does not know may speculate that the hill is a cloud. Actually, it is not a cloud. It is a big hill. One has to learn from authority that the sight of a cloud is not actually a cloud, but a hill. If one makes a little more progress, then instead of a cloud, he sees the hill and something green. When one actually approaches the hill, he will see many varieties. Another example is in perceiving milk. When we see milk, we see that it is white. When we taste it, it appears that milk is very palatable. When we touch milk, it appears very cold. And when we smell milk, it appears to have a very good fragrance. And when we hear, we understand that it is called milk. Perceiving milk with different senses, we say that it is something white, something very delicious, something very aromatic, and so on. Actually, it is milk. Similarly, those who are trying to find the Supreme Godhead by mental speculation may approach the bodily effulgence or the impersonal Brahman, and those who are trying to find the Supreme Godhead by yoga practice may find him as the localized Supersoul. But those who are directly trying to approach the Supreme Truth by the practice of Bhakti Yoga can see him face to face as the Supreme Person. Ultimately, the Supreme Person is the destination of all different processes. The fortunate person who, by following the principles of scriptures, becomes completely purified of all material contamination, surrenders unto the Supreme Lord as everything. Just as one can appreciate the real taste of milk with the tongue and not with the eyes, nostrils, or ears, one can similarly appreciate the absolute truth perfectly and with all relishable pleasure only through one path, devotional service. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Bhaktya mam abhijanati. If one wants to understand the absolute truth in perfection, he must take to devotional service. Of course, no one can understand the absolute truth in all perfection. That is not possible for the infinitesimal living entities. But the highest point of understanding by the living entity is reached by discharge of devotional service, not otherwise. By following various scriptural paths, one may come to the impersonal effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The transcendental pleasure derived from merging with or understanding the impersonal Brahman is very extensive, because Brahman is Ananta. Tad Brahmanishkalam Anantam. Brahmananda is unlimited. But that unlimited pleasure can also be surpassed. That is the nature of the transcendence. The unlimited can be surpassed also, and that higher platform is Krishna. When one deals directly with Krishna, the mellow and the humor relished by reciprocation of devotional service is incomparable, even with the pleasure derived from transcendental Brahman. Prabodhananda Saraswati therefore says that Kaivalya, the Brahman pleasure, is undoubtedly very great and is appreciated by many philosophers, but to a devotee who has understood how to derive pleasure from exchanging devotional service with the Lord, this unlimited Brahman appears to be hellish. One should try, therefore, to transcend even the Brahman pleasure in order to approach the position of dealing with Krishna face to face. As the mind is the center of all the activities of the senses, Krishna is called the master of the senses, Rishikesha. The process is to fix the mind on Rishikesha, or Krishna, as Maharaj Ambarish did. Savai Manak Krishna Padara Vindayo. Bhakti is the basic principle of all processes. Without bhakti, neither Jnana Yoga nor Astanga Yoga can be successful. And unless one approaches Krishna, the principles of self-realization have no ultimate destination. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Text 34 through 36. By performing fruitive activities and sacrifices, by distributing charity, by performing austerities, by studying various literatures, by conducting philosophical research, by controlling the mind, by subduing the senses, by accepting the renounced order of life, and by performing the prescribed duties of one's social order, by performing the different divisions of yoga practice, by performing devotional service, and by exhibiting the process of devotional service, containing the symptoms of both attachment and detachment, by understanding the science of self-realization, and by developing a strong sense of detachment, one who is expert in understanding the different processes of self-realization realizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead as he is represented in the material world as well as in the transcendence. I'm going to read this verse again because there's a lot here, and I want to read it just so it can sink in a little bit more. By performing fruitive activities and sacrifices, by distributing charity, by performing austerities, by studying various literatures, by conducting philosophical research, by controlling the mind, by subduing the senses, by accepting the renounced order of life, and by performing the prescribed duties of one's social order, by performing the different divisions of yoga practice, by performing devotional service, and by exhibiting the process of devotional service containing the symptoms of both attachment and detachment, by understanding the science of self-realization, and by developing a strong sense of detachment, one who is expert in understanding the different processes of self-realization realizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead as He is represented in the material world as well as in transcendence. Purport. As it is stated in the previous verse, one has to follow the principles of the scriptures. There are different prescribed duties for persons in the different social and spiritual orders. Here it is stated that performance of fruitive activities and sacrifices and distribution of charity are activities meant for persons who are in the householder order of society. There are 4 orders of the social system: brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. For the grihasthas, or householders, performance of sacrifices, distribution of charity, and action according to prescribed duties are especially recommended. Similarly, austerity, study of the Vedic literature, and philosophical research are meant for the vanaprasthas, or retired persons. Study of the Vedic literature from a bona fide spiritual master is meant for the brahmachari, or student. Atmendriya Jaya, control of the mind and taming of the senses, is meant for persons in the renounced order of life. All these different activities are prescribed for different persons so that they may be elevated to the platform of self-realization, and from there to Krishna consciousness, devotional service. The words bhakti yogena chaiva hi mean that whatever is to be performed, as described in verse 34, whether yoga, or sacrifice, or fruitive activity, or study of Vedic literature, or philosophical research, or acceptance of the renounced order of life, it is to be executed in bhakti yoga. The words chaiva hi, according to Sanskrit grammar, indicate that one must perform all these activities mixed with devotional service. Otherwise, such activities will not produce any fruit. Any prescribed activity must be performed for the sake of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9:27, Yat karoshi, yadishnasi. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you sacrifice, whatever austerities you undergo, and whatever charities you give, the result should be given to the Supreme Lord. The word eva is added, indicating that one must execute activities in such a way. Unless one adds devotional service to all activities, he cannot achieve the desired result. But when bhakti yoga is prominent in every activity, then the ultimate goal is sure. One has to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as it is stated in Bhagavad Gita. After many, many births, one approaches the Supreme Person, Krishna, and surrenders unto Him, knowing that He is everything. Also, in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam. For anyone who is undergoing rigid austerity, or for anyone performing different kinds of sacrifices, the beneficiary is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the proprietor of all planets, and He is the friend of every living soul. The words Dharmano Bhaya Chinena mean that the Bhakti Yoga process contains two symptoms, namely attachment for the Supreme Lord and detachment from all material affinities. There are two symptoms of advancement in the process of devotional service, just as there are two processes taking place while eating. A hungry man feels strength and satisfaction from eating, and at the same time, he gradually becomes detached from eating anymore. Similarly, with the execution of devotional service, real knowledge develops, and one becomes detached from all material activities. In no other activity but devotional service is there such detachment from matter and attachment for the Supreme. There are 9 different processes to increase this attachment to the Supreme Lord: hearing, chanting, remembering, worshiping, serving the Lord, making friendship, praying, offering everything, and serving the lotus feet of the Lord. The processes for increasing detachment from material affinities are explained in text 36. One can achieve elevation to the higher planetary systems, like the heavenly kingdom, by executing one's prescribed duties and by performing sacrifices. When one is transcendental to such desires, because of accepting the renounced order of life, he can understand the Brahman feature of the Supreme. And when one is able to see his real constitutional position, he sees all other processes and becomes situated in the stage of pure devotional service. At that time he can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. Understanding of the Supreme Person is called Atma Tattva Avabodhena, which means understanding one's real constitutional position. If one actually understands one's constitutional position as an eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord, he becomes detached from the service of the material world. Everyone engages in some sort of service. If one does not know one's constitutional position, one engages in the service of his personal gross body, or his family, society, or country. But as soon as one is able to see his constitutional position, the word swadrik means one who is able to see his true self, he becomes detached from such material service and engages himself in devotional service. As long as one is in the modes of material nature and is performing the duties prescribed in the scriptures, he can be elevated to higher planetary systems, where the predominating deities are material representations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, like the Sun God, the Moon God, the Air God, Brahma, and Lord Shiva. All the different demigods are material representations of the Supreme Lord. By material activities, one can approach only such demigods, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 9:25. Yanti deva vrta devan. Those who were attached to the demigods and who perform the prescribed duties can approach the abodes of the demigods. In this way, one can go to the planet of the Pitas or forefathers. Similarly, one who fully understands the real position of his life adopts devotional service and realizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Text 37. My dear mother, I have explained to you the process of devotional service and its identity in 4 different divisions. I have explained to you as well how eternal time is chasing the living entities, although it is imperceptible to them. Purport. The process of Bhakti Yoga, devotional service, is the main river flowing down towards the sea of the Absolute Truth. And all other processes mentioned are just like tributaries. Lord Kapila is summarizing the importance of the process of devotional service. Bhakti Yoga, as described before, is divided into 4 divisions, 3 in the material modes of nature and 1 in transcendence, which is untinged by the modes of material nature. Devotional service mixed with the modes of material nature is a means for material existence, whereas devotional service without desires for fruitive result and without attempts for empirical philosophical research is pure, transcendental devotional service. Text 38. There are varieties of material existence for the living entity according to the work he performs in ignorance or forgetfulness of his real identity. My dear mother, if anyone enters into that forgetfulness, he is unable to understand where his movements will end. Purport. Once one enters into the continuation of material existence, it is very difficult to get out. Therefore, the Supreme Personality of Godhead comes himself, or sends his bona fide representative, and he leaves behind scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, so that the living entities hovering in the darkness of nations may take advantage of the instructions, the saintly persons, and the spiritual masters, and thus be freed. Unless the living entity receives the mercy of the saintly persons, the spiritual master or Krishna, it is not possible for him to get out of the darkness of material existence. By his own endeavor, it is not possible. Text 39. Lord Kapila continued, this instruction is not meant for the envious, for the agnostics, or for persons who are unclean in their behavior, nor is it for hypocrites, or for persons who are proud of material possessions. Text 40. It is not to be instructed to persons who are too greedy and too attached to family life, nor to persons who are non-devotees and who are envious of the devotees and of the personality of Godhead. Purport. Persons who are always planning to do harm to other living entities are not eligible to understand Krishna consciousness and cannot enter into the realm of transcendental loving service to the Lord. Also, there are so-called disciples who become submissive to a spiritual master most artificially, with an ulterior motive. They also cannot understand what Krishna consciousness or devotional service is. Persons who, due to being initiated by another sect of religious faith, do not find devotional service as the common platform for approaching the Supreme Personality of Godhead also cannot understand Krishna consciousness. We have experience that some students come to join us, but because of being biased in some particular type of faith, they leave our camp and become lost in the wilderness. Actually, Krishna consciousness is not a sectarian religious faith. It is a teaching process for understanding the Supreme Lord and our relationship with Him. Anyone can join this movement without prejudice, but unfortunately, there are persons who feel differently. It is better, therefore, not to instruct the science of Krishna consciousness to such persons. Generally, materialistic persons are after some name, fame, and material gain. So if someone takes to Krishna consciousness for these reasons, he will never be able to understand this philosophy. Such persons take to religious principles as a social decoration. They admit themselves to some cultural institution for the sake of name only, especially in this age. Such persons also cannot understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Even if one is not greedy for material possessions, but is too attached to family life, he also cannot understand Krishna consciousness. Superficially, such persons are not very greedy for material possessions, but they are too attached to wife, children, and family improvement. When a person is not contaminated by the above-mentioned faults, yet at the ultimate issue is not interested in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or if he is a non-devotee, he also cannot understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. He explained just in a nutshell why it's so rare, pure devotional service. Text 41. Shradhanaya Bhaktaya. Instruction should be given to the faithful devotee who is respectful to the spiritual master, non-envious, friendly to all kinds of living entities, and eager to render service with faith and sincerity. Text 42. This instruction should be imparted by the spiritual master to persons who have taken the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be more dear than anything, who are not envious of anyone, who are perfectly cleansed, and who have developed detachment for that which is outside the purview of Krishna consciousness. Purport. In the beginning, no one can be elevated to the highest stage of devotional service. Here, bhakta means one who does not hesitate to accept the reformatory processes for becoming a bhakta. In order to become a devotee of the Lord, one has to accept a spiritual master and inquire from him about how to progress in devotional service. To serve a devotee, to chant the holy name according to a certain counting method, to worship the deity, to hear Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam or Bhagavad Gita from a realized person, and to live in a sacred place where devotional service is not disturbed, are the first out of 64 devotional activities for making progress in devotional service. One who has accepted these 5 chief activities is called a devotee. One must be prepared to offer the necessary respect and honor to the spiritual master. One should not be unnecessarily envious of his godbrothers. Rather, If a god brother is more enlightened and advanced in Krishna consciousness, one should accept him as almost equal to the spiritual master. And one should be happy to see such god brothers advance in Krishna consciousness. A devotee should always be very kind to the general public in instructing Krishna consciousness, because that is the only solution for getting out of the clutches of Maya. That is real humanitarian work, for it is the way to show mercy to other people who need it very badly. The word Shushrushabirataya indicates a person who faithfully engages in serving the spiritual master. One should give personal service and all kinds of comforts to the spiritual master. A devotee who does so is also a bona fide candidate for taking his instruction. The word Bahir Jati Viragaya means a person who has developed detachment from external and internal material propensities. Not only is he detached from activities which are not connected to Krishna consciousness, but he should be internally averse to the material way of life. Such a person must be non-envious and should think of the welfare of all living entities, not only of human beings, but living entities other than human beings. The word Shuchaye means one who is cleansed, both externally and internally. To become actually cleansed externally and internally, one should chant the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, or Vishnu, constantly. The word Diyatam means that knowledge of Krishna consciousness should be offered by the spiritual master. The spiritual master must not accept a disciple who is not qualified. He should not be professional and should not accept disciples for monetary gains. The bona fide spiritual master must see the bona fide qualities of a person whom he is going to initiate. An unworthy person should not be initiated. The spiritual master should train his disciple in such a way so that in the future only the Supreme Personality of Godhead will be the dearmost goal of his life. In these two verses, the quality of a devotee are fully explained. One who has actually developed all the qualities listed in these verses is already elevated to the post of a devotee. If one has not developed all these qualities, he still has to fulfill these conditions in order to become a perfect devotee. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So that brings us over 8 o'clock.
There's 2 more verses in the chapter which don't have purports.
Really? Well, thank you very much for that. Hare Krishna. We'll finish the chapter under the guidance of the Vaishnavas. Text 43. You said 2, it's only 1.
Yes, that's this one.
Anyone who meditates upon me with faith and affection, who hears and chants about me, surely goes back home, back to Godhead. That's so nice, I'm going to repeat it 2 more times. For emphasis, we say 3 times. Do this, do this, do this. Anyone who once meditates upon me with faith and affection, who hears and chants about me, surely goes back home, back to Godhead. Anyone who once meditates upon me with faith and affection, who hears and chants about me, surely goes back home, back to Godhead. We got that verse tonight by the grace of Radharaman Prabhu, our landlord, the Prince of Hythe. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the third canto, 32nd chapter of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled Entanglement in Fruitive Activities. All glories to Lord Kapiladev, all glories to the process of devotional service, and all glories to the processes that take us to pure devotional service, but especially all glories to pure devotional service. Hare Krishna. So we'll stop there. And tomorrow we are going to begin the last chapter in the third canto, the activities of Kapila. All right, that was a big reading with a lot of beautiful realizations in it. So we're waiting on this auspicious day for the reflections. This is Srila Prabhupada's appearance day. So there's nothing better that we can do than to reflect upon the knowledge in his books. That was his instruction to us, and one of his last instructions to us. I was in the room and I heard with my own ears, and then later on I read it in the last volume of Bhagavatam that he translated and commented upon. That was, just go on discussing Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam among yourselves, and everything will remain clear. Hare Krishna. Radharaman is going to.
Well, as you said, Maharaj, there's so many points in this reading that one could comment on.
Unlimited.
I'm just going to comment on one for now because it connects with something we were discussing earlier today and yesterday about the importance of hearing regularly from Srila Prabhupada, and even if it seems like he's apparently repeating the same thing, because we need to keep on being reminded because we so easily forget. And another point that is that when he repeats these things, sometimes he says something a little bit different.
Oh yes, oh yes.
And there's an example of that in, I think it's the 42nd, the last one that had a long purport, where he says, to serve a devotee, to chant the holy name according to a certain counting method, to worship the deity, to hear the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam or the Bhagavad Gita from a realized person, and to live in a sacred place where devotional service is not disturbed, are first out of 64 devotional activities for making progress in devotional service. One who has accepted these 5 chief activities is called a devotee.
Yes, that's the translation of Rupa Goswami's in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of the 5 most important items of devotional service. And the way Srila Prabhupada translates here is just a little different, isn't it? But it says the same thing. The chanting of the holy name, hearing of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, associating with devotees, living in a holy place, and worshipping the deities with faith and devotion.
And he adds that line in this place that one who has accepted these 5 chief activities is called a devotee.
Yeah.
In Easy Journey to Other Planets, he paraphrases these 5 activities and then says something slightly different at the end.
There's another thing that he said that he didn't say here about these 5 activities, and that is that they're so powerful that even if you don't understand them, they act. And he uses the example of a potent medicine. If a medicine is actually potent, and the disease is actually the proper disease to be treated by that medicine, you don't have to understand anything about the medicine. You just take it and it acts. So these 5 methods of devotional service are so potent and so easy. You can set up yourself in any place in the world and do these 5 activities and transform the atmosphere into spiritual atmosphere. And I mean, I've had quite a few devotees come here and visit us who have been to our room in Govardhan, which is arguably one of the most holiest places in the world, in the universe actually. And they've told me directly that the atmosphere in this room is the same as the atmosphere in that room. And that's just not 1 or 2, that's practically everyone who's come here that have been in both places. Hare Krishna. Thank you for that lovely reflection.
And actually, just in closing on that point, Maharaj, I remember when Ananta Kripa Prabhu came, I'll never forget, when he came here for the first time, and he just instantly just came out of his mouth,
yes,
this is exactly like Govardhan, it's the same as Govardhan.
Bless his pure-hearted soul. Hare Krishna. Jayashree is going to give us a reflection. Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, you repeated the last verse 3 times, but it's so nice. I want to repeat it one more. Anyone who once meditates upon me with faith and affection, who hears and chants about me, surely goes back home, back to Godhead. Actually, I like the word once so much.
Oh, yes.
Because, Srila Prabhupada actually definitely gave us the easiest method. I mean, even if you do it once in your lifetime, you are sure to go back home, back to Godhead. But of course, it will take time. But I mean, if you do it once, even you chant the holy name once, then you are sure on the path.
So let's go deeper. Why?
Why? Because the devotional service already started. I mean,
because as Lord Ramachandra promised, and Lord Krishna also promises, if one once with sincerity surrenders to him, from that day on, he takes charge.
Yeah.
It's Krishna takes charge of the devotee. And therefore he says in the Gita, Nami Bhakta Pranashati, my devotee should never perish. And that's why here Kapila Dev goes to such an extent to define what a pure devotee is.
And also it's the words of Srila Prabhupada, and Krishna has to follow, because Srila Prabhupada is obviously a pure devotee.
Yes.
And we are so fortunate.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, Hare Krishna.
First is from Sridevi Dasi.
Hare Krishna, Sridevi Dasi.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada's books. Last night I was able to go to New Raman Reti in Alachua for Janmashtami for a few hours.
Oh, nice.
It was wonderful.
Yes, absolutely. That's why Srila Prabhupada installed deities all over the world, so that people would have an opportunity to go and see the Lord and perform these 5 activities. When you go to an ISKCON temple, you automatically perform these 5 activities. That's a fact. And that is expertise. That is real expertise and real power, spiritual power. Talking about Prabhupada's appearance and how to glorify him. He did this. This is the most glorious service that anyone has ever rendered to human society.
From Rati Manjari.
Yes, Rati. Haribo.
Jai Guru Maharaj, how fortunate we are to hear you read Srila Prabhupada's books on his Divine Appearance Day.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
From Braj Balaba.
Yes, Braj Balaba. Haribo.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. A hearty thanks for keeping the mail coming and connecting us to His divine grace.
And that was sweet. Thank you, Braj. We'll see you soon.
And from Anandamurti Devidasi.
Yes, Anandamurti.
Dear Guru Maharaj and all assembled devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for today's reading of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Jai Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
All glories to His divine grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada.
It is so wonderful to hear the glories of Bhakti Yoga. Quote, anyone who once meditates upon me with faith and affection, who hears and chants about me, surely goes back home, back to Godhead. Unquote.
So now we've heard it for the third, fourth, fifth time.
Only by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada we can hear and chant the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Otherwise, I really have never heard about the Lord and chanted about the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for that lovely reflection.
Yesterday, 5 Bhagavad Gita distributed. The day before, 24 Bhagavad Gita.
Whoa.
I am feeling grateful to your instruction. Without your mercy and encouragement, I was totally in ignorance, and I have never concerned about book distribution within this material world ocean.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Anandamurti. Please keep up the good work. You're making devotees. It's wonderful. Pleases Krishna more than anything else. Hare Krishna.
And from Rati Manjari.
Yes, Rati.
Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Indeed, a meaningful reading with many points. One point I appreciated is how Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport to the prohibitions Kapila Dev makes in texts 39 and 40 as to who is not qualified to hear this knowledge. Srila Prabhupada soberly and in a rather detached way shows how not everyone who joins this movement is fit to stay in the movement because of their ulterior motives. Quote, we have experienced that some students come to join us, but because of being biased on some particular type of faith, they leave our camp and become lost in the wilderness.
Srila Prabhupada said that our movement cannot be destroyed from outside, but from within it can be damaged, seriously damaged. Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes these personalities as Kali Chelas. And he describes in more graphic detail that they have tilak on their foreheads and kuntimala in their necks, but they don't follow the principles of devotional service. To them it's just a show. They're doing it because they want some position, they want some power, they want some followers, they want something for themselves. Bhukti Siddhi Kami, Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami. These three are the material desires that must be cleansed from the heart before we can actually taste the nectar of pure devotional service. Bhukti Mukti Siddhi, material enjoyment, liberation, and mystic perfections. All these personalities have desires for themselves in their mind by performing devotional service. But take heart. Padma Purāṇa makes a very strong statement. Namaparada yuktanam namameva yaham agam means that the chanting of the holy Krishna, the holy name of the Lord, the Maha Mantra, is for offenders. Now that doesn't mean that offenders are going anywhere. But what it means is, if offenders continue to chant and don't stop chanting, then the holy name is the only thing that's powerful enough to remove their offenses. So if you think that you're too much of an offender, chant the Hare Krishna mantra without stoppage, as Prabhupada said. So, without stoppage means either constantly, 24/7, which is very, very rare, or regularly, or every day. Hare Krishna.
From Gemma?
Thank you, Rati.
From Gemma?
Yes, Gemma.
Thanks again, Guru Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupada on his auspicious appearance day. Yes, I like the list of 5. Narrowing it down to what is repeated is obviously the most important for us to concentrate on. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
And more from Rati Manjari.
Yes, Rati.
I noted Srila Prabhupada's sense of detachment even about his own disciples. I find this fascinating because we know that Srila Prabhupada is also full of compassion, and sometimes he cried. He cried when a disciple left. Could you please comment on how we can understand these two attitudes in Srila Prabhupada? Or is this not important?
It's love. We've heard again and again and again and again and again in these purports that we need to perform devotional service with love and affection. And Krishna's love and affection is unlimited. But one who's fully Krishna conscious, his love and affection is the same as Krishna's, but not unlimited. So when a person is on the Uttama platform, the Mahabhagavat platform, but still preaches, normally the Uttama Bhakta sees every single person as a devotee. Radharani is the perfect embodiment of the Uttama Bhakta, and she thinks that everybody's a devotee except for her. But still she's always trying to bring others to Krishna. That's Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's Krishna, but he's in the mood of Srimati Radharani, and he's trying to bring everyone to Krishna. That is out of pure love and affection. But sometimes when we are spreading Krishna consciousness and we have a follower, whether it be a Diksha follower or a Shiksha follower, the person needs correction. And so Krishna, loving everyone, kills the demons out of affection. And how do you know it's out of affection? Because when Krishna kills the demons, they go back to Godhead. Not they just get liberation, they go back to Godhead. Now in rare cases they won't go back to Godhead because they really need to come back again in order to become fully Jai and Vijay. They came not 3 times, they came 4 times. 3 times to become purified until they got killed by Krishna, and the last time as Jagai and Madai to get prema from Krishna in the form of Lord Chaitanya. So everything that the pure devotee does and that Krishna does is for the benefit of whoever they come in contact with out of affection. In the 4th chapter of the Gita, Krishna defines the knowledge that we get when we receive knowledge from a pure devotee is that knowledge in which one can see that every living being is but a part of the Supreme, or in other words, Krishna says, he is mine. So if you really have affection for Krishna and you see every living being is a part of Krishna, then you will feel an affection for all living beings. And out of that affection, we treat each person differently. Krishna treats people differently, but always out of affection, because it's always in order to take them further towards Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.
And this is from Rati Manjari.
Yes, Rati.
She says, "Thank you very much. I love hearing you elaborate. Tonight I also appreciated that Srila Prabhupada recommends that when a godbrother is more advanced, we should not be envious of him, but rather serve him, and consider him to be almost on the level of the spiritual master. This sounds so transcendental and practical at the same time. Srila Prabhupada ki jai."
Yeah, I'd like to point out also in that same part where Prabhupada says that the disciples should give all comforts to the spiritual master. And at the same time, the spiritual master is not into comforts. So this is very difficult to understand. If you want to find out about this, just start initiating disciples with the blessings of the devotees, of course, not on your own. And then sit down and listen to your own praise on your birthday. I mean, this is something special. It's really something special, because it's not palatable to hear things about yourself, positive things about you. What to speak of saying things about yourself. It's unpalatable. And yet, when it happens in that forum, it becomes so palatable that everyone is transported to real family affection, literally. So it seems incongruous sometimes, it seems contradictory, but that's the nature of the absolute truth. Achintya, Bedha, Veda, Tattva. It is simultaneously different and the same.
This is from Gora Nataraj Das.
Yes, Gaur Nataraj.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Actually, it's from Shyam Kishore. Thank you very much for the reading.
Yes, Shyam Kishore. You must have been using Gaur Nataraj's phone.
I'm here with Gaura Nataraj Prabhu listening from Paris. We had a very enlivening Janmashtami and Srila Prabhupada appearance day.
Very nice.
And ending with this reading is La Crème de la Crème.
Crème de la crème. That's where I got it, in France. I learned this when I was in France. Crème de la crème. Thank you.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to your glorious service, your servant Shyam Kishore.
Thank you, Shyam Kishore. All glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, in this holiest of days. Hare Krishna.
And from Vilas Manjari.
Yes, Vilas Manjari.
Dear Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I miss being in your live reading so much. I missed your Vyasa Puja, and I'm so sorry. I was so busy with Julan Yatra, then I fell sick. This made me realize that since I stopped joining live 6 months ago, it just hasn't been the same. I don't hear as carefully when I listen later, and I'm really going to try to come live again.
Mm-hmm.
This hearing in your association helped me to find steadiness in hearing, something I couldn't have done alone. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Thank you very much. That's a very lovely reflection and a deeply meaningful appreciation. Thank you so much.
And from Subara.
Yes, Subbarao. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for your daily glorification of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam by reading the Bhaktivedanta books. Many of us say Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai during everyday programs. One of the true and meaningful ways of glorifying His divine grace is to read, and read again His books. Thank you for doing this glorious service and keeping us on the devotional path. There are many gems in today's readings. One of them I like is the analogy given by His divine grace on milk. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 3:32-33 quote, When we see milk, we see that it is white. When we taste it, it appears that milk is very palatable. When we touch milk, it appears very cold. When we smell milk, it appears to have a very good fragrance. And when we hear, we understand that it is called milk. Perceiving milk with different senses, we say that it is something white, something very delicious. End quote. Bhakti Yoga is like proof of pudding, is eating it. Daily readings, Ki Jai.
Jai Ho, Hare Krishna. Thank you for that lovely reflection.
And from Rati Manjari.
Yes, Rati. Finally, she's opening up with her realizations.
She says, last night during our Janmashtami festival in Amsterdam, 1,400 people came. I sold 3 Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam sets, which felt really good. Thank you for the encouragement.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much for the enlivenment. Hare Bo. And on this most auspicious day, we had a most auspicious reading and most auspicious reflections from all of the devotees, both present here and out there in cyberspace, wherever you are. And all I can do is be overwhelmed with gratitude. The cup of my gratitude runneth over. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. And I'll see you tomorrow night, and I promise you, I won't miss another night for the rest of this month at least. Okay, I made my vow. Say, tomorrow night, we'll hear further Lord Kapila Dev's instructions. Actually, we'll hear about the activities of Lord Kapila Dev. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow. Hari Bo.